Listen, when you've been patrolling the outer rim of the Andromeda sector for 300 rotations, you think you've seen everything. Well, let me tell you, the universe has a twisted sense of humor, and it was about to play its biggest joke on all of us. My name is Commander Vex Korrath, and I speak for the Galactic Defense Council. We're the ones who keep the peace between 78 different species across 49 star systems. Or at least, we try to. Some days are better than others, and some days, well, some days you meet the Bloodhound of Kepler-9. First reports came from the mining colonies on Kepler-9's third moon. Workers were disappearing. Not dying, mind you, disappearing. One moment they'd be drilling for quantum crystals, the next moment their tools would be found scattered across the mining site, still warm from their grip. No bodies. No blood. No trace. Captain Zelek of the Tritonian Defense Force called it in. Poor guy's voice was shaking through the subspace transmission. Commander Korrath, we need immediate assistance. Something is hunting us. I almost laughed. The Tritonians were 8 foot tall, 4 armed warriors who could bench press a hover tank. What could possibly hunt them? 2 days later, I found out the thing, and I use that term loosely because calling it a creature would be an insult to actual creatures, stood 12 feet tall on its hind legs. Its skin was like living shadow, constantly shifting and rippling as if it was made of liquid darkness. 6 eyes, each the size of dinner plates, glowed with an intelligence that made your spine crawl. But the worst part? The absolute worst part? It smiled. Not with teeth, but with pure malevolent joy that radiated from every pore of its nightmare existence. It lost 3 squads trying to contain it. Seasoned veterans, each with decades of combat experience. The Bloodhound moved through our laser barriers like they were made of paper. It phased through solid matter when it wanted to, became corporeal when it needed to strike. Our weapons passed right through it, but its claws? Oh, its claws were very, very real. The survivors described watching their teammates get pulled into what they called the void spaces. Imagine reality having gaps, and this thing could open those gaps and shove you through them. 1 second you're fighting for your life, the next you're falling through dimensions that shouldn't exist. For 6 months, this thing terrorized every species in the sector. The Catharians, with their quantum shields? Useless. The Nexari mind warriors who could kill with a thought? They tried. 3 of them went catatonic after attempting to breach its consciousness. Even the Void Hunters, the deadliest assassins in known space, refused the bounty. Refused it. Can you believe that? Then came the emergency council meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered on Station Omega-7. The mood was, well, let's just say nobody was making jokes about the station's famous blue milk anymore. Everyone was scared. And when I say everyone, I mean species that had been conquering galaxies before most civilizations learned to make fire. High Chancellor Mortek of the Draconian Empire stood at the podium, his usually confident demeanor cracked like broken armor. Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented threat. Our combined military forces have suffered 67% casualties. The entity continues to expand its hunting ground. The Photonic Collective's representative, a being of pure energy named Lumina 9, flickered with anxiety. Our computational models suggest a 73% probability of total sector evacuation within the next rotation cycle. That's when the human representative raised her hand. I'd seen humans before, of course. Cute little bipedal mammals from a backwater planet called Earth. They'd only achieved faster-than-light travel about 50 years ago, barely qualified for junior membership in the Galactic Council. Most species considered them amusing pets at best. They had no natural weapons, no telepathic abilities, no quantum manipulation powers. Just these soft, pink creatures who died if you looked at them wrong. The human representative was a young female named Dr. Elena Vasquez. She couldn't have been more than 30 Earth years old, which made her practically an infant by galactic standards. She wore a simple blue uniform and had this irritating habit of taking notes on actual paper. Paper. In the age of neural interfaces and quantum data storage. High Chancellor, she said in that peculiarly melodic human voice, has anyone tried simply talking to it? The entire chamber fell silent. I'm talking about the kind of silence that makes you question whether sound still exists in the universe. 800 representatives from the most advanced civilizations in known space just stared. Chancellor Mortek's third eye twitched. Dr. Vasquez, this entity has consumed 47,000 sentient beings across 12 worlds. I hardly think conversation is the appropriate response. Elena shrugged. Actually shrugged. Has anyone tried? The Catharian war chief, General Zarnoth, made that grinding sound they make when they're annoyed. Human, your species' naivety is showing. This creature is death incarnate. It does not communicate. It hunts. It feeds. It kills. Elena nodded thoughtfully, scribbling something on her paper pad. Right, but how do you know it doesn't communicate? Have you attempted to establish a dialogue, or are you just assuming it's mindless because it's scary? I watched as 400 years of military experience and tactical genius got reduced to awkward shuffling and nervous throat clearing. She had a point, and everybody knew it. We'd been so focused on fighting the thing that nobody had considered, well, basic first contact protocols. The meeting ended with Elena volunteering to attempt communication with the Bloodhound. The council tried to talk her out of it. They offered her alternative assignments, promotions, early retirement with full honors. Anything to keep this tiny human from walking into certain death. She just smiled and said, "Thank you for the concern, but I've got this." Famous last words, right? That's what we all thought. We gave her 3 days to live, maybe 4 if she was exceptionally lucky. The betting pools on Station Omega 7 had odds of 12,000 to 1 against her survival. We're all idiots, because what we didn't know, what none of us understood about humans, was that sometimes the smallest creatures carry the biggest surprises. And Dr. Elena Vasquez was about to teach the entire galaxy a lesson about why you should never, ever underestimate a species that climbed to the top of their food chain without claws, fangs, or quantum manipulation. The real adventure was just beginning, and none of us were prepared for what came next. So there we were, watching Dr. Elena Vasquez prepare for what everyone assumed would be the shortest suicide mission in galactic history. She packed exactly 3 items: a universal translator, a thermos of something she called coffee, and a folding chair. A folding chair. The woman was planning to sit down and have a chat with Nightmare Incarnate. I volunteered to pilot her transport ship. Call it morbid curiosity, or maybe I just wanted front row seats to the most spectacular failure in military history. Either way, somebody had to witness this disaster, and it might as well be me. The flight to Kepler-9 took 18 hours. Elena spent most of it reading. Not tactical manuals or xenobiology reports, a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I kid you not. She was cramming for the apocalypse with human self-help literature. "Doctor," I said during hour 16, "are you absolutely certain about this approach? We could still turn back. Request backup. Wait for the Nexari to develop new psychic weapons." She looked up from her book and smiled. Humans have this peculiar way of smiling that somehow manages to be both reassuring and terrifying. Commander Korrath, in my experience, most conflicts arise from misunderstandings. Maybe this creature isn't evil. Maybe it's just lonely. Lonely. She thought the interdimensional murder machine might be lonely, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-9 system. Long-range scanners immediately detected the Bloodhound's energy signature on the 3rd moon. It was feeding, which meant some poor mining crew was having the worst day of their very short lives. "Set us down 2 kilometers from its position," Elena instructed, checking her universal translator one more time. "Doctor, that's well within its hunting range." "The moment we land, Commander," she interrupted gently, "trust me on this one." Famous last words, Part 2. He landed on a barren stretch of the moon's surface. The mining colony's lights flickered in the distance like dying stars. Elena grabbed her folding chair, thermos, and translator, then headed for the airlock. "Wait," I called after her. "What's your evacuation plan?" She paused in the doorway. "I don't have one." And just like that, she was gone. Walking across alien terrain in nothing but a standard environmental suit, dragging a folding chair behind her like she was heading to a backyard barbecue, watched through the ship's external cameras as she approached the mining complex. The Bloodhound's presence was unmistakable. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around the facility. Shadows moved independently of their sources. The air shimmered with malevolent energy. Elena found a spot about 50 meters from the main building, unfolded her chair, and sat down. Then she opened her thermos, poured herself a cup of coffee, and waited. For 3 hours, nothing happened. The Bloodhound continued its hunt inside the facility. Occasionally, the building would flash with otherworldly light, followed by screams that made my scales crawl. Elena just sat there, sipping coffee and humming some human melody. Then, suddenly, the screaming stopped. The facility's lights went out one by one. A darkness deeper than space itself began seeping from the building like spilled ink. The temperature readings on my instruments dropped by 40 degrees in seconds. "Dr. Vasquez," I whispered into the calm, knowing she probably couldn't hear me over the sound of her own impending doom. The darkness coalesced into a familiar 12-foot nightmare. The Bloodhound emerged from the facility, its 6 eyes scanning the moonscape until they locked onto the small human sitting calmly in her chair. What happened next violated every law of predator behavior in the known universe. The Bloodhound stopped. Not paused, not hesitated, stopped completely. Its head tilted to one side in what could only be described as confusion. Here was prey, sitting in the open, completely defenseless, and the galaxy's most efficient killing machine just stood there. Elena raised her hand in what humans call a wave. "Hello there," she said through the universal translator. Her voice carried across the airless moon through some kind of localized field effect. Beautiful night, isn't it? Well, I suppose it's always night on moons without atmospheres, but you know what I mean. The Bloodhound's response was to phase in and out of reality several times, as if it was having some kind of existential crisis. Elena took another sip of coffee. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez from Earth. I was hoping we could talk. Everyone else seems to think you're some kind of monster, but I'm not so sure. Mind if I ask your name? The creature's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, like the sound of dying stars given vocal form. Name is forgotten. Purpose I hunger. Oh, that's sad, Elena said with genuine sympathy. How long has it been since someone called you by your name? The Bloodhound's form wavered. Time has no meaning in the void spaces. Hunger is eternal. That must be exhausting, Elena replied, pulling out a second folding chair from seemingly nowhere. Humans and their impossible pockets. Would you like to sit down? I have extra coffee. I swear on my ancestors' battle honors, the Bloodhound of Kepler-9, terror of the galaxy, looked at that chair with what could only be described as longing. I cannot consume your offering. It's not about consuming, Elena said gently. It's about sharing. When was the last time someone offered to share something with you? The creature's massive form began to shrink. Not disappearing, not phasing, shrinking. Like it was deflating. Within minutes, it had reduced itself to roughly human size, though it still looked like animated shadow with too many eyes. It approached the second chair cautiously, as if expecting a trap. Elena waited patiently, occasionally offering encouraging nods. The Bloodhound sat down. This is strange, it admitted. First times usually are, Elena agreed. So, what's your story? How did you end up hunting in this sector? And then, in what will go down as the most surreal conversation in galactic history, the Bloodhound began to talk. Not hunting. Not feeding. Just talking. It turned out the creature wasn't evil. It was lost. Displaced from its home dimension by some cosmic accident eons ago, it had been wandering the void spaces ever since. The hunting, the feeding, it was trying to find enough energy to tear open a portal home. Every life it took was another step closer to seeing its family again. I have been alone for so very long, it whispered, and those 6 terrible eyes actually welled up with tears that sparkled like liquid starlight. Elena reached over and patted what might have been its shoulder. Well, you're not alone anymore. And I think I might be able to help you get home without all the eating people. The Bloodhound looked up with something that might have been hope. That was 6 months ago. Today, the creature that once terrorized the galaxy works as a dimensional consultant for the Galactic Science Council. It goes by the name David now. Elena suggested it, said it was a nice, simple name that suited him. He's helped us map 17 new dimensional pathways and prevented 4 reality-ending paradoxes. Oh, and he found his way home. Turns out his family had been looking for him too. They visit the station every few weeks, lovely interdimensional beings who bake cookies that exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. As for Dr. Elena Vasquez, she got promoted to Chief Diplomatic Officer and now handles all our impossible first contact situations. Her success rate is 100%, though her methods still give me nightmares. The moral of the story? Never underestimate a species that conquered their world not through strength or speed or claws, but by figuring out how to make friends with everything they met, even the monsters, especially the monsters.